So voiceover is where I kind of is my home base and what I did for a long time and still love to do. And my first national commercial was a voiceover for tampons. And basically there's an on-camera actor who says, like, I took ballet. And a bunch of us were doing echo voices in the spot. And so what ends up in the final spot is just one word where I go, ballet. And I made like $30,000. And I was a broke actor before I got into voiceover, right? So I was working at Starbucks and, living off of my father's credit card. And I was like, this is the greatest job, which is what's funny, because when I finally went into on camera at like 40 and now I'm working like 15-hour days and having to put on hair and makeup, I was like, wait a second, take me back to the Tampax days where I said one word.
Our parent just died.
There are no words. There are no words. There are no words. There are no words. There are no words.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot of words.
And we say never to forget the pain.
With Transparent, sort of how, you've been on that show for a while. Like, how has that show sort of grown and changed over time, or how has your relationship with it changed?
The first year was like one of the most surreal, like, shot out of a cannon. We didn't know what Amazon was. It was just starting to be a streaming service. I'd been a series regular once on a show that lasted just a couple of weeks on the air, so it was also the biggest content that I'd ever gotten to have as an actor. And as an actor too, I'd never had a character that I got to play that long. So the coolest part of staying with something for that long is that you get to kind of calm down and really appreciate it every year, and really be comfortable in the character and really feel free and relaxed, which is not something you normally associate with acting and performing in Hollywood. Even a play with a long run, you're not changing the content. So to follow a character's life, it's rare. It's rare in our business. That's why everybody is so jealous when you get these parts, because it doesn't happen that often that you get to live with something for a while and live with something that you really love doing. We were so fortunate, and people wanted to be a part of the show. Like, even the finale, we have, Richard Kind and Rainn Wilson, like, basically coming in for a day, to just kind of play a part and participate in the legacy of the show.
You on one side, me on the other. It's perfect.
You know what I think?
I think you like the idea.
I read as well, and you can tell me if this is true, that you also do voice doubling for Julia Roberts.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I don't anymore because now I'm too busy, which is good news. The discovery came because when she was pregnant with her twins, she did America Online. Which is now it's funny, like, at the time it was like this huge campaign. Mm-hmm. And my dad called me and said, "You sound great on the America Online campaign." And I'm like, that's not me. And we found out it was Julia Roberts. So then we told my agents I sound a lot like Julia Roberts. And I did almost an entire trailer for, I think it was called Duplicity. And I was watching it going, I think this is like all me. They were showing her on camera, but her voice, so it didn't have to match up. It was just like my voice laid over images of the movie. And I pretty much did the entire trailer for that movie. And I was sitting there the whole time. And I said to my husband at the time, my ex-husband, I was like, "You're basically married to Julia Roberts."
If I can't get you to hand over the amulet, I should kill you.
You kill me? In front of my son?
I will if I have to.
That's funny. I was just thinking the same thing.
You've also done 37 episodes of Trollhunters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
What do you like about doing that show? About
Animated.
Just like popping in?
Well, it was Guillermo del Toro. It's like a really amazing group of artists. There's like silliness in animation that you get to do that in other jobs you don't normally get to go to that extreme. Like, I've been turned into a troll, So there's a real playfulness to it that brings you back to like kind of your childlike state of why you wanted to do this in the first place.
How do you feel?
Well, I feel she should find some other way to feel better besides marijuana.
No. I mean, how do you feel since your husband died?
Oh.
I always say there has to be 2 out of 3 things when I'm going to take something. So you have the character that you're playing, you have the people that you're working with, and you have the money. So it has to be like 2 out of 3. So for that, there was no money. I thought the character was very funny, and she was like this therapist who had like a bunny in her office, and she just was quirky and weird. And of course, it was Susan Sarandon, so I was like, I'm in. And Lorene was like this, and I, especially after Transparent, I would always ask, is the director female or queer? because those were the two categories that or a person of color. I just wanted to always say yes to the projects where I was supporting a director or a creator that was, representing a group of people that wasn't normally represented here, because 99% of the time it's always like some white guy, and I was just kind of like, I don't need to do that. But if someone wants me and I can somehow give something back, not that I was for Lorraine, but I've done some other favory type things, that's usually the thing that I'm looking for.
Anyone check with Gorn about his alibi?
We have to go where the evidence takes us.
Then go alone.
You're suspended.
I am a big Law & Order fan.
Yeah.
You've done
I did a bunch of those.
2 different SVUs.
Yeah.
And you've pretty much run the whole
I did
gamut.
Criminal
the regular
Intent.
and Criminal Intent.
I did all of it. Yeah, that was like a requisite when you were in New York, and I lived in New York for about 10 years. That place was like home. What's crazy is Bradley Whitten, just to bring up my random Law & Order story, my husband never did it. He felt like it was like a point of pride that he would never do Law & Order. And Jeffrey Tambor was doing Law & Order, and they offered it to Bradley to be in his episode, and he's like, oh, I've always wanted to work with Jeffrey. So he takes that Law & Order, and then Jeffrey goes, hey, I'm doing this new series on a streaming thing, and you'd be great for this part. And so Bradley gets cast in Transparent and is now my husband. So I owe it all to Law & Order is my point.
Please, stop. You know all of this ends with you dying on the ground in front of her. If you love her, you have to stop.
Handmaid's Tale was amazing and a huge thrill. I'm the biggest fan of that show. And I got to do what I think is like an incredibly integral part to the sort of lore of that, which is to be June's daughter's Teal mom. She's one of those wonderful characters on that show that's incredibly compromised by the situation they're in, but clearly has some compassion and is struggling with where to be in that place. What's funny about Early Edition is everyone thinks it's like a news program, like because of
Yes, the name.
Right. But it was a show that ran in Chicago for a very long time. It was on CBS. Kyle Chandler, who's now like, Oscar level, was the lead of this. And it was a somewhat cheesy hour-long where the lead character would get the newspaper the day before and stop a crime. They had a lot of guest stars from Hollywood, and they ran out of money, and so they had to have one of the guest stars be local, which got to be me, which was a huge deal for a Chicago actor because we never got like the big parts. So I played this like really obnoxious, loud, angry, pregnant woman. We were moving to my coverage, and at the end of the week, and Kyle goes home. They're like, we're sending Kyle home. And I just was like, well, I didn't even understand like what I was supposed to do, that I would do the scene with someone else. And then I remember being like, well, why wouldn't he stay here for me? Like, but then I would do TV later, and I was like, oh, the guy's in like 22 episodes, and he's working 17-hour days, and like guest star number 5 has one scene with a turnaround, and they're letting him go home early. But it was a world that I knew nothing about.
I've tried to be a serious man.
You're gonna be fine.
Tried to do right, be a member of the community.
You're gonna be fine.
Please, just tell him I need help. Please.
You're gonna be fine.
I need help.
I was doing a play here when they were auditioning that movie. I don't know how I got that part, because I am literally the most sort of overstimulated human that you'll meet. Somehow I understood her in a way that I can only describe as kind of channeling, like, not that I believe in that, but something weird happened to me when I read that script and auditioned for that part, that it was not like anything I've ever done before or since. They write very, very specific stage directions in their scripts. I basically just followed the map of them saying, like, she's barely audible, her eyes don't blink, she takes massively long, uncomfortable pauses, and I just went like all the way for it. And the other thing about the Coen brothers is they don't change anything. They're so specific and clear in their writing and what they want that you don't change anything. And the only sad part of that is it moves really quickly. So they're fast and efficient, and you're having so much fun because they're so lovely and brilliant that you just wish you could like hang out more. But that part changed my life, but for sure. When I moved here for good, it was for I got a series regular, my first one, playing Paul Reiser's wife on an NBC sitcom called The Paul Reiser Show. So my family, we moved out here. I was like, I'm moving to LA. I'm now going to be Helen Hunt. I'm going to be extremely wealthy, and I'm going to be on TV for the next 10 years. And we got canceled after 2 weeks of airing. So it was quite I now was in LA and was not that established. I mean, I'd had this failed TV show. I ended up making a living doing, I think I did 9 guest stars in my first year in LA. I think it was because I was going through a divorce, and I was doing a lot of like NCIS shows and stuff like that. Like I was either murdering someone or crying, and I couldn't not get the job. It was like I go in and the emotions were like right here. So I just booked like 9 guest stars in the first year here. But I was scared. I was a commercial voiceover. I wasn't doing animated series here yet. I didn't know what was going to happen in my career. I was older, considering like LA age standards, at least what I was told. And I ended up writing sort of about my divorce and writing a script which I'd never written before, and I was pitching it around LA, and I actually sold it to FX one day, and I walked out of the office after selling it to them and got this text from Jill Soloway that I had booked Transparent. So like what was a really tumultuous, scary, I don't know what's going to happen, how I'm going to survive here, turned into like this one day, literally 1 hour, where my entire career trajectory changed.